Now, news and issues important to you from across the trucking world. It's Road Dog Trucking News with Mark Willis.
All right, guys. Hey, it's hour number 2. Sirius XM's Road Dog Trucking News. Thanks for being out there, ladies and gentlemen, and boys and girls. And let me give you the phone number to call into the program. It is 888-876-2336. And what I do in this program, ladies and gentlemen, is I provide you with news, traffic, and weather, things that apply to you out there in the trucking world. You can also reach me online if you're so inclined and don't want to call into the program. Simply just reach out to Sirius XM's Road Dog Trucking News, traffic, and weather service. And, you know, the whole point of the show, guys, is to bring you news and information, motivation to help you stay out there on the road. The important thing, guys, is that you get that information and you run with it. In other words, if you've got, say, questions about health and wellness, if you got a question about, say, rules, regulations, if you want to, talk to the reporters that are covering these stories, get involved. That's why I've got the phone lines open. All right, let's get on to the next topic of the day, ladies and gentlemen. And this is an idea that I've been kind of kicking around for the last month or so. I wanted to make it happen and have the first ever Road Dog Trucking News Safety Summit. Now, this is going to be an opportunity for you to talk with 3 of the best safety directors out there in the trucking industry today. Gary Bolden is with me with Transport America. He is the Director of Safety. Christopher Hilkemann is on the phone with me as well, the Vice President of Risk Management, the Associate General Counsel at Crete Carrier Corporation and Schaefer Trucking, and from Jetco, Jeff McKinney is going to be joining us on the program. And gentlemen, good afternoon to all of you. I appreciate you joining me here on the show. Gary, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks, Mark. Glad to be here with you.
Yes, sir. Tell folks what you do. You're a brand new voice here on the program. Set it up for us. Tell the listeners what you do at Transport America.
Yeah, my name's Gary Falding. I'm the Vice President of Safety and Security at Transport America, and really what I oversee is all aspects of safety, regulatory issues. Got oversee the support centers that we have. We've got 10 support centers around the country, and just making sure that we have a good, comfortable place for our drivers to stop at.
All right, very good. And that is a big job, no question about that, staying ahead of the regulations and making sure everybody is, on the same page. And what is the website for Transport America?
Our website is, I tell you what, I got to look that up.
Okay, no problem.
Sure, I get you the right one there.
Well, we've got the whole hour, so plenty of time to do that. Christopher Hilkemann is on the phone with me, the VP of Risk Management and Associate General Counsel at Crete and Schaefer. And Chris, welcome to the show, sir. Good afternoon to you.
Well, good afternoon, Mark. Thank you for having me on. It's a real privilege.
Yes, sir. Thank you for joining us on the program. All right, set it up. What do you do? Tell listeners out there, what do you do at Crete and Schaefer?
Well, I'm ultimately in charge of overall compliance throughout the organization, and certainly that means compliance with the DOT regulations, but that's also compliance through all other areas of the company. And so that would include employment law, employee benefits law, any regulation that affects our employees and our operations. I have a hand in that, and I spend a fair amount of my time working with our employee benefit staff and making sure that our employment benefits are being run appropriately and that we're engaging with the right vendors to offer the right benefit programs to our employees. And, you had mentioned as we first started the program here about health and wellness, and certainly that's something near and dear to me as I work across our vendor base and making sure that we have the right insurance programs in place for our employees.
Absolutely. And Gary, to that point as well, that's one of the critical components of a whole trucking operation is making sure that all of the, the benefits are in tune with what the driver's needs are. Just in general terms, that's probably got to be one of the top priority jobs out there, is making sure that everything's on the same page, right?
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, we want to make sure that all the drivers are covered with what they need as far as benefits, and we've got the help, if they ever need some help to see what exactly we cover them on, we can definitely help them on that as well.
Okay, guys, I wanted to ask you as far as what is going on with the regulatory structure that we have right now. There is so many different rules and regulations that are in the works or they're on the books out there. Regulatory, are we facing a regulatory overload in your estimation with the hours of service, the ELDs out there? What are your thoughts on that, Gary? Are we facing simply just an era of too many regulations, too fast, if you will? What do you say?
There is a lot of regulations, a lot of things that are coming down, but they're really not coming down all at once. I mean, we hear about them in advance, and usually by the time a regulation gets put into place, it's been telegraphed months, if not years in advance.
Okay.
So, granted, there is a lot of regulations, and we don't want to see a lot of regulation coming down, but we are able to deal with those because, like I said, we know them well in advance, and really it's up to us to help the drivers comply with those regulations. I mean, they've got to have a hard job. They're driving, and for them to stay on top of everything that's coming down, they need some help.
Yeah, absolutely. And Christopher, talk about the importance of training in your estimation. Of course, it gets down to safety. Why is that so critical in this day and age? What do you say to that?
Well, there's the mandates out there and the proposed rules out there specifically targeting entry-level driver training. And, at Crete Carrier, Schaefer Trucking, we typically hire experienced drivers. We don't have a large pool of trainees. And so, we're not like similarly situated companies that have trucking schools that bring folks in, go through their trucking school, and then bring them on board. We hire more experienced drivers, but experience is important, and training in the same respect is important. There's a lot of things you need to know when you're behind the wheel of that truck, not only on how to operate that truck, but how the industry works, how the regulations work, how to log your time, how to comply with the plethora, as you mentioned, of regulations out there. That takes a lot of time over the road to learn. That takes a lot of time, sometimes in the books to learn. And so training is of paramount importance, just so that you, as a driver, are well-versed in everything that you need to know to operate safely, efficiently, and effectively while on the road.
And Gary, this is a personal opinion, but I'm thinking that when I hear the phrase truck driver, I mean, that is such a 90s term. Isn't it more like, skilled navigator? I mean, there are so many different ways to describe it. Is that a phrase that we maybe need to revisit? I mean, because there are so many different things, like Christopher was mentioning, that the drivers have got to handle out there. What is your thoughts on that?
I agree. It's definitely a skilled job. A technician. I mean, you look at what we have on the trucks now. You look at like you brought up the ELD mandates. You're going to have logging devices in the trucks that they need to know how to work, and the trucks are becoming more complex as well. They're not as simple as they used to be. So it definitely takes a high level of skill, and really, that's part of the training as well. When a new driver comes on board, they have got to know exactly what that truck can do and all the safety equipment that is on that truck and how to use that property in order to take advantage of it. And there's a lot to learn. Trucks are different. We really got two types of trucks in our fleet. We try to keep a very new fleet as well. Nothing over 5 years old, and those trucks have a lot of new technology on them that we got to make sure the drivers know and understand and are comfortable with.
Yeah, and Christopher, expand on that. With the new technology that's on board, from like lane departure warning systems, the ELDs, for example. I mean, the regulations are demanding this kind of technology, and that often means that there's got to be, in general terms, more comprehensive training. Talk about the correlation between the two, if you will.
Well, that's true, and that also goes back to a prior point that you made: is are we being overly regulated? And as we have seen the last kind of batch of regulation, much of it is geared to technology. Because of the explosion in technology on the trucks in recent years. Now we have the regulation that's catching up, because the regulation is always going to follow the technology, right? And so that's why we're seeing proposed rules for speed limiters, for the rules for electronic logging devices. We're seeing the stability mandate that's coming out, the asking for a mandate for collision mitigation systems. Because all of these are now ready for full fleet deployment on any commercial motor vehicle. Now Congress and the FMCSA is saying, look, what do we need to do now with this technology to make sure that it's being used and being used effectively? With respect to driver training, you're absolutely right. I mean, with any type of technology, it takes time and it takes education to understand how that technology works. And any time that we're putting a new piece of technology on our trucks, we will bring that driver in and make sure that they understand how that technology works. And sometimes it's even more important that they understand how the technology doesn't work. We've had, the collision mitigation systems on our trucks for many, many years, and have gone through a series of upgrades as that technology has advanced. And it's important for our drivers to understand how that technology works, what it's designed to do, and similarly what it's not designed to do. When we went with the AOBRD devices, soon to be ELD devices, that took a lot of time, a lot of training to help our drivers understand how those devices work, and making sure that they're using them appropriately, and making sure that they understand the benefits of the technology that's coming out. So, if you're going to roll out technology, that's a key piece, is to make sure that you're also rolling out the educational pieces so that it's being used appropriately.
And Gary, ultimately, the driver's actions on the road are really the testament of just how comprehensive that training may be. Correct in that? I mean, ultimately, you're going to see that in general terms. You'll see that in the accident results, or maybe the moving violations. What is there a connection with those two in your estimation?
Oh, yeah, I mean, obviously, we talked a lot about technology and that, and you don't want to put technology out there for technology's sake. You want to put technology out there that actually works, and we're very careful in that we don't throw everything on the trucks that's out there. It's well vetted before it goes on the trucks. But to your point, we should see results. And it's not just the technology, but it's the training that goes along with that. The driver is still in control of that vehicle. They still control their speed. And, CSA's out there, for whatever people think of CSA. I think there's good points about CSA. I think there's parts that need to be changed in CSA. But, it's not just luck that some carriers are very good in CSA and other carriers aren't. I think that's a reflection of how well carriers are working with their drivers to make sure they know and understand how to be compliant. And that's one reflection of that.
Yeah, I've got a break as I'm coming up on some commercial messages. I got to take care of traffic and weather, but I want to get your thoughts on this when we come back. With each of with an incident that might occur, and I want to get both of your thoughts on this. Is this an opportunity to maybe go back and review procedures, and is this also a chance to maybe offer remedial training to the drivers? I mean, because the most important asset of any trucking company is going to be that driver. And I would think that, from a training standpoint, if there are ways to maybe help that driver better understand the complexities of, being out there on the road, then that's a win-win for everybody involved. Drivers, welcome. I'd love to get you on board if you want to join us in the conversation. A lot of folks are dialing in. This is the first Road Dog Trucking News Safety Summit, and I'm bringing together some of the best safety minds out there in the trucking industry today. Gary Valden is with Transport America. He is the Director of Safety. Christopher Hilkemann is the Vice President of Risk Management, Associate General Counsel at Crete and Schaefer Trucking. And man, love to get your thoughts on this. If you want to talk about training in general, and as you would imagine, a lot of folks are lining up wanting to jump in, and I'll get to the calls, promise. First, so let me take care of business, and I'll update traffic and weather this minute right here on Sirius XM.
And now, traffic and weather on Road Dog Trucking News with Mark Willis.
All right, guys, 20 and 50 updates on both. You can count on that here. And if you're traveling to Chicago, well, I'm expecting some difficult weather as you travel into maybe the weekend hours. There was a lot of fog this morning. I'm expecting the fog to maybe start to burn off as we go through the midday hours. If you got travel plans through the Windy City, just make sure that you are ready for rapidly changing visibility. Allow additional time to get to the destination. And you guys know this, of course. Use the low beams, reduce the speed, give that extra distance between your vehicle and other vehicles out there. And again, the phone number to call in, it's 888-876-2336. I'm going to take a break and come back and get right into your calls next. Stay with me. I'm Mark Willis, live across North America on Sirius XM 146.
This is Road Dog Trucking News with Mark Willis.
All right, guys, again, thank you for being out there, ladies and gentlemen. A little bit of a different approach. This is the first Road Dog Trucking News Safety Summit. This idea kind of came to me the other day. We talk often about safety out there on the road, the rules, regulations, but I thought it might be very interesting to bring on board two of the best safety directors out there across the trucking industry. I've got Gary Valden on the phone with Transport America and Christopher Hilkemann on the phone as well with Crete Carrier Corporation and Schaefer Trucking. And gentlemen, again, I appreciate you doing this. There's obviously a lot to cover with the rules and regulations, and it is so important that the training be there to help promote safety out there. And, Gary, the industry is doing some great things, right? Trucking is really making some great strides on the safety front. You got to be very proud of that, right? Just in general, that safety is at the top of the page for everybody that's out there on the road.
No, you're absolutely right. If you see what trucking companies are doing, what the industry as a whole is doing, I think it's pretty phenomenal. I mean, you look at the money that trucking companies are spending on technology to help keep drivers safe and the public safe, and the amount of time and training that goes into making a skilled driver. I think it's impressive, and there has been great gains over the period of time, over years.
All right, and also, Christopher, from your vantage point, I know you've been in the industry for many years. Man, we've really made some great progress when it comes to safety out there. You got to be proud of that.
Well, absolutely. And I think the proof's in the pudding, if you will. I mean, you can just see through some of the statistics that, accidents are down, fatalities are down. And when there is an accident involving a tractor-trailer combination and a four-wheel vehicle, 80 to 90% of the time, that's not going to be the 18-wheeler's fault. And so that just proves that we are doing the right things. But no matter what types of safety technologies, we can put on our trucks, there's nothing that can replace that driver.
Mm-hmm.
I think Gary said it in the last segment. That truck driver is our most valuable asset. He's in charge of that truck, and it doesn't matter what safety systems you have on it. That truck driver, he's the one that's in control. Now, there's things that we can do to help mitigate some loss, but ultimately, it's hiring and retaining that good quality truck driver. That's what it's all about.
All right, let's go to Steve first up in New Jersey. Steve, welcome, sir. You're on the panel with Jeff, Gary, and Christopher.
How you doing?
Hello.
I want to talk about having some sort of maybe a minimum training standard.
Sure.
I've been driving for 16 years. I'm now an owner-operator after I took some time to actually learn, the business, and I want to expand my business. And my thought was to pay a guy a salary, run the truck as a solo truck, and have that happen for a year. I think that a lot of the training comes down. It's too short-sighted. You're talking sometimes, if you're lucky, a couple of months. And some of these guys never get into these driving situations where, maybe they're out in the Rockies or, they're, in Florida near, possible storms down there, wherever it may be, or up in the snow. And I think that they need to take time to actually learn that. But it seems like they're very short-sighted with that. And
okay. That's a great question. I appreciate the phone call, Steve. And gentlemen, from a couple of different angles with that, the FMCSA came out with the minimum driver training criteria, pretty much leaving it up to the training standards of the company to make that final determination as to whether or not a driver is going to be good to go. Some were calling for like 30 hours behind the wheel, 30 hours in a classroom setting. What are your thoughts on that, Gary, from your perspective, as far as the actual numbers? Do the numbers really matter? Is it ultimately going to be up to maybe the trucking company to make sure that driver is going to be, the one that's trained and ready to go?
Well, I think the trucking company is trucking company is going to be 100% responsible for that driver. So we can't completely depend. We can't depend on anybody else to make sure that driver is 100% ready to be able to handle it out on the road. We do take students in. They get their CDL. They come to us, and we've got a pretty extensive program that we put our drivers through where, the driver is driving. We don't run solo. We don't run a training program where they run as part of a team or anything like that. That person has the full attention of the trainer 100% of the time. And just like the caller had brought up, there are so many situations out there that a driver can encounter that we have got to make sure they're prepared for. He brought up about going over the Rockies, brought up about winter. And, so if you get a driver that starts in the summer and we can have a trainer go through with them for quite some time, and they are a very skilled driver. Well, if they haven't had experience in winter, that's a problem.
Yeah.
So it's up to us to make sure that we get them through that experience and make sure the drivers are ready to go out there on their own.
Yeah, Christopher, expand on that, because what Gary's describing, going up over Snoqualmie Pass for the first run is going to be, I'm sure, a white-knuckle ride for many. How important is that the driver gets exposure to all of the elements, to all different types of driving, night driving, city driving, that kind of a thing? What are your thoughts? Expand on this.
Well, I think that's very important. One of the reasons I believe that Crete and Schaefer have the CSA scores that they have is the fact that we were pretty selective of who we choose as a driver, and we're looking for that experienced driver, for that reason. You need to be able to handle the situations that are on the road, and that comes with time. Now, that being said, we do have a training program for limited purposes, and we'll bring on some students, and we'll bring on some folks that may have experience, driving in the oil fields or driving in a little bit different segment than a true over-the-road driver, more of a regional driver, more of an out-and-back driver. They have some driving experience, but not a true over-the-road experience. And so we have built some training programs for that, and depending on what type of driver that it is, it might be 3, 4, 6 or 8 weeks of spending some time out on the road with a trainer. And that's very important, because the classroom setting isn't going to prepare you for the real world that's out there, or the real road that's out there. And to have that experience with a trainer for 3, 4, 6, or 8 weeks is very, very beneficial.
All right, I got a break, guys. I've got news coming up. Joining us on the other side is going to be Jeff McKinney, and he is with Jetco, based out of the Houston area, and I wanted to bring him on to talk about the safety aspect from the regional perspective and the local perspective. That's going to be coming up. Drivers, love to get you on board. I got a bunch of you holding, and I am going to get to your phone calls. Gary Folden with Transport America. He is the safety director. Christopher Hilkemann is on. The VP of Risk Management, Associate General Counsel with Crete and Schaefer, and Jeff McKinney with Jetco is going to be joining us on the other side as well. This is a brand new segment. I just came up with this. It is the first ever Sirius XM Road Dog Trucking News Safety Summit. And I'm bringing on board 3 of the best safety directors out there in the trucking industry today. First of all, let me update news, bottom of the hour right now on Sirius XM.
Back to Road Dog Trucking News with Mark Willis.
All right, guys. Hey, welcome. Brand new segment here on the program. It is the Road Dog Trucking News Safety Summit. I've got 3 of the best safety directors out there in the trucking industry today, and you've got the opportunity to talk with them. I've got Gary Folden with Transport America on the phone, Christopher Hilkemann with Crete Carrier and Schaefer, and now on the phone with us is Jeff McKinney from Jetco. And Jeff, I want to welcome you to the program, sir. You're live across North America.
It's great to be here. Thank you, Mark.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Set it up for us. Brand new voice on the show. What do you do?
Well, I'm the safety director for Jetco Delivery, and we're a small local to regional type carrier here in Houston. And, we have a wonderful set of drivers here that, I've listened a little bit to what you guys are talking about, and we're a little bit different down here than some of the over-the-road trucks of bringing drivers on. We're a small carrier. We don't have the luxury of trying to bring on some of the new drivers from the school, but we do what we can to bring experienced drivers. We ask at least 2 years experience, and bringing a driver into a culture where we bring a sense of values of going here to work and doing the right thing so they can get home to the families.
Yeah, and is that one of the keys with it, Jeff, is having that safety culture? I know you're regional and you do local, but it's the same sense of values, right? You're bringing on board somebody to train them. It's part of the culture. It's part of the DNA of the company, if you will.
Yes, you want to bring those drivers in that want to do the right thing. I mean, there's a lot of drivers out there that are very professional, want to be the safe drivers on there, and share the road. And that's what we intend to teach these drivers, train the drivers, and show the other drivers on the road, whether it's truck drivers or people in the cars, that we are professionals, and we want to show them how safe we are, and hopefully that will rub off on some of the other drivers.
Absolutely. All right, let's go to Leonard, who's been holding in Illinois. Leonard, welcome to the show. You're on the Safety Summit with Jeff, Gary, and Christopher. Question or comment?
Hey, how are you doing, guys?
Great.
That's
Great.
good.
Thank you.
That's good. Hey, I had kind of a question about the way that you guys set up all your sign-on bonus programs, and I thought to myself, also with North America and the safety aspect of time off for your vacation time. In North America, Canada also included, is most places are 2 weeks vacation time for your first year. You have to be there 3 years, I think, before you get 3 weeks, and then 5 years, maybe it's 5 years before 3 weeks, and then after that you get a week for every year. Now, I know a lot of the drivers out here go from company to company for whatever reason, the way they're treated, equipment, area that they live in. There's lots of reasons for that. But your sign-on bonuses, I often think to myself, why don't they offer 3 weeks or 4 weeks vacation after you've been there for a year as also an incentive. You guys ever think about that?
All right, very good. Appreciate the call, Leonard. Guys, when you look at the overall safety aspect of it, vacation policies aside, is that a motivator? In other words, that say you want to motivate the drivers to be safety as part of that, maybe including safety bonuses as part of that process. Christopher, what do you say to that? Is that maybe something the industry needs to look at overall?
Well, per the gentleman's caller, he's talking a lot about vacation time, and I think perhaps what he really means is home time. And we know that home time is near and dear to a driver. They're on the road for long periods of time, 3 weeks or more. And we have some regional fleets that are home more frequently than that. And that's a difficult mindset to be in. That's a difficult position to be in when you're away from your family. And certainly that puts you in a different mindset than if you're home with your family every day. And we know that driving is just as much or more mentally than it is physically.
Yeah.
And so we know that home time is important to drivers. We've been working on ways to try to improve home time. We know that that's something that's valued, and we think that certainly that can tie directly to safety. I mean, if you can get home more and you can take care of business and be closer to your family, I think that puts you in a different mindset. And when you're in that type of mindset, and not a mindset where perhaps you're worried about some things that are going on at home and haven't been there for a while to take care of it, we want to get you and make sure that you stay within that mindset, good mindset.
Gary, tie that in. Home time, that equate to a safer driver in your estimation?
Yeah, I think it definitely does. I mean, like Christopher said, if things are weighing on a driver's mind, that can take their mind off the road. And, when you're driving a truck, you're driving an 8,000-pound vehicle, you have got to stay focused all the time. One thing that we ask our drivers, and we'll talk to our drivers when they come back from home time or vacation, and, did everything go okay? We're all ready to go back to work again. If they've got unfinished business and they're thinking about that, it can be tough to concentrate on driving.
Yeah, absolutely. Jeff, expand on that as well, sir. Even with you guys being local and regional, if a driver has got some things going on at home or whatever the case may be, I mean, this is important for any company to focus in on that and allow that driver to maybe take care of business and then bring them back when they're refreshed, right? That all boils down to safety.
Absolutely. I mean, if they have things on their mind, it's almost like a distraction. It's a cognitive distraction. They're constantly thinking about this problem at home, and when you're on the road, that will, distract them from the safe driving they have, especially around here in the Houston area with all the traffic. So we try to talk to our drivers every day, and if they have an issue, we allow them to go home when they need to and take that time out. We always give our drivers that ability and to take that time out if something's wrong, and let's fix it before you get on the road and something unsafe happens.
Yeah, let's go to Jerry next up in Missouri. And Jerry, thank you. Good, sir. You're on the Safety Roundtable with Jeff, Gary, and Christopher.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. I'll make my little speech, Mark.
Okay.
I've been out here for 50 years, third generation. I even had 4 semesters of transportation law back in the early 60s before I went to driving. My first thing is, number one, a lot of the so-called hard regulations that everybody's having to deal with, I believe that's a fault of truckload management not being able to police itself over the years. So now they got cornered because the LTL drivers have no problems with that. Number two, the technology. We've got all this so-called great technology out here that's supposed to enhance safety. How come we've got all these 30 and 40 and 50 truck collisions that, believe me, I've been out here over 5 million miles up until the past few years. We never had all these massive rear-end collisions that we have now because we took the simple $50 CB radio out of the truck because orientations were telling the drivers in the truckload business, we don't want you to talk to the senior drivers, and please don't use your headlights to signal the other drivers because that may be against the law. That is the genesis of your 40 and 50 truck collisions where once the police are there, they're still crashing into each other. Rest my case. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you, Jerry. And gentlemen, let's go around the table with that. Christopher, in summary for Jerry, he's saying the industry was never able to self-police, and that's why we've got all of these regulations now. Is that a fair statement in your estimation?
Well, what I would say to that is similar to what I said earlier. Look, technology is not a silver bullet. We rely on that driver who is fully in control of the vehicle to be able to, appreciate every aspect of what he's doing and really appreciate even those actions of those people around him and to drive defensively. So that he can avoid, those situations, or if he can't avoid it, at least mitigate that situation. Now, technology has advanced where we've been able to assist that driver in that endeavor, especially with collision mitigation systems. They can react in certain circumstances, faster than a driver. Ultimately, we don't want the driver to get into the circumstance where that system has to trigger. But if he does get into that situation or she gets into that situation, that technology has been designed to help mitigate, any outcomes that are going to come out of that. It all comes down to the safety culture. Safety first and foremost is our mantra here at Crete. And I think that if you look at our safety record, it's a very good safety record within the industry, and it's because I think we've done a good job at self-policing and making sure that we hire and retain those safe and qualified drivers.
All right, let me get you to expand on that, Gary. If there is an event, I've got to imagine that it's going to trigger something in the truck, and that triggers something back in your office there. How does that work? And from that standpoint, is that a teachable moment, if you will, for the driver to keep them on board?
Yeah, it is. I mean, the caller had talked about the technology in the trucks, and there is a lot of technology, and that with that technology, it's a lot of information. A lot of that information comes right back to the carrier. He did talk about the CB, and I get what he says with the CB. There was an opportunity to warn drivers well in advance of something ahead.
Yeah.
And you just don't see those anymore. And the technology, we've got weather alerts on our truck that based on the dispatch of where the driver's going and the National Weather Service, that's one way we kind of help the driver to stay away from those situations, because usually those big pileups are due to the fact of very poor driving conditions.
Yeah.
And how do you avoid those in the first place?
Yeah.
And that's where those weather alert comes in.
Right.
And then just you had asked about the information coming off the trucks. There is a ton of it.
Yeah.
And that does give us an opportunity to identify drivers that that may need some help. I mean, obviously, if we've got data that's showing, 5% of our drivers are having a heck of a lot of safe following distance or hard brakes, we owe it to that driver to bring that up to coach and let them know, because the last thing we want to do is have this information and not do something with it where we could help the driver or we could help the public. We'd be doing everybody a disservice.
I got a break.
Not using that.
All right, hold the thought. I got a break here. Man, great information. Drivers, again, if you were just now tuning into the program, this is the Road Dog Trucking News Safety Summit. I've got three of the best safety directors out there in the industry today. Gary Falden with Transport America, Christopher Hilkemann on the phone with Crete Carrier and Schaefer, and Jetco. From Jetco, I've got Jeff McKinney. Guys, great comments. I got a break for traffic and weather this minute right here on Sirius XM.
And now, Road Dog Trucking News with Mark Willis.
Drivers, when you talk with safety directors out there, guys, there's a lot of information that can help you, dissect and understand when it comes to regulations, rules, and things like that. I mean, the most important job out there, no question, is your job, driving that truck, staying safe. You are the most valuable asset out there on the road today, and I'm hoping this, at least give you a little food for thought about the complexities of working in the trucking industry and keeping safety at the top of the list. This is the Road Dog Trucking News Safety Summit. It is the first segment of this, and I brought on board three of the best safety directors out there in the industry today. Gary Falden with Transport America has been part of this, and Gary, I want to get the website out there where drivers can find you guys at TA. How can they reach out?
Yeah, the best way to get a hold of us is on www.changingtrucking.com.
Okay, and Christopher, same question for you, sir. How can drivers find you guys?
www.cretecarrier.com or www.cretecarrierjobs.com, www.schaefertrucking.com.
Okay, very good. And Jeff, how can drivers find you guys at Jetco? Where can they reach on the web?
www.jetcodelivery.com.
All right, great. Guys, really appreciate this. I mean, this is a perspective from the over-the-road and the local and the regional perspective. Big Fat Daddy is on the phone in Chicago. Big Fat Daddy, you probably weigh about 150 pounds. Am I right?
Maybe in 1974.
Oh, yes, sir. Yep. I'm with you on that one. Well, welcome. What do you think? I've only got a couple minutes left. What do you think about safety from your perspective?
I think?
Yeah.
I think my dad was right. When you make something idiot-proof, there's a new and improved idiot.
Okay.
That being said, I think all this technology is no substitute for a properly trained driver. And until we get four-wheelers on board, it's Pandora's box out there as far as what's going to happen.
Okay. All right. I'm under the gun with a clock, but I appreciate you calling. Let me go around the table quickly with that, guys. Christopher, your thoughts. I mean, it's great to bring the technology on board to train the truck driver out there from A to Z, but until we get four-wheelers on board, do we still have an uphill battle? What do you say?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, technology is not a silver bullet. The only way that safety is going to increase is to increase the safe driving and the attentiveness of the driver behind the wheel. And that means commercial motor vehicle drivers, and it probably means more of those four-wheel drivers.
All right. And Gary, your thoughts, expand on that, if you will.
And I agree. I mean, the statistics show, and I think we talked about this earlier, that the vast majority, and when I say vast majority, 70, 80% of serious crashes are not the fault of the truck driver. It's the four-wheelers on the road. So there has to be good education, and I think trucking companies and drivers need to be involved in educating the public on how to drive safely around trucks.
Yeah, and Jeff, I'm just about out of time. Real quick, from your perspective, local and regional, we got to get the four-wheelers on board. I'm under 30 seconds. What do you say?
Yeah, I agree. If we sit there and do the training for the drivers, and we can do outside training for some of these people that drive these cars, I think it'll go a long way. But I agree with everybody. We need to have a lot more training for these guys.
All right, guys, thank you. I mean, great stuff. I really appreciate all of you guys getting on board and talking about safety. Gary Falden with Transport America, Christopher Hilkemann with Crete and Schaefer, and from Jetco, Jeff McKinney. Guys, appreciate you sharing your thoughts about safety. I got to wrap it up. Music means I'm done. I'm off the stage. Casey Phillips is next. I'll see you tomorrow starting at 2 East on Sirius XM 146.